Okay, so should we get started?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, let's get started. So I'd like to thank everybody for the time this evening. My name is Chris Erbacher, and I am the product specialist for VitalFit. And we've got other members of the team here, so we're all very excited that you've joined us on our first ever support group educational series. And before I introduce Cosi and Greg properly, I just wanted to go through a couple of tutorial slides for those folks that aren't as familiar with how the Zoom and webinars go. And Paul's going to give us the next slide. So two things here. The chat feature is wonderful because if you look at your desktop, you'll see the chat icon. And this is a nice way for you to communicate with us. We are going to use that for two purposes tonight. One is we're going to put the link for the survey at the end. And also we would like you to put the answer to the first question where you can win the giveaway, which is a starter kit. So that'll be really fun. So please look when you hover over your mouse with the screen, you'll see the chat, and that's how you get to that. If you're using your cell phone, it looks a little bit different for the chat feature. And we're going to pull that up. So with the mobile phone, when you're looking at your device, you'll see the chat, and you will tap on that and click on participants, and that will enable you to send that way. And if you'd like to raise your hand, we will unmute you, and it'll afford you the opportunity to share what's on your mind. And then you can go ahead and place your hand down. How do you say that? Unraise your hand, I'm sorry. Okay. And the Q&A, which is not on here, oops, sorry, raise your hand and share reactions for the mobile phone. Similar, if you look at your device, tap on the raise hand at the bottom of the screen, and then we'll note that you have raised your hand. And the last but not least is the Q&A. So that area is real important. So at any time during the webinar, if you have something you'd like to ask, please feel free to type it in the Q&A box, and we will absolutely get to your questions before we're done today. All righty, so thank you for that. So I'm really excited to have Cosi Belloso. She's a wonderful woman, and she's a master of physical therapy. She's been in clinical practice for 17 years. She has her own clinic in Florida where she specializes with individuals with limb loss. And she has a wonderful show called Cosi Talks that's every Wednesday night on Facebook. Whoop. So welcome, Cosi.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Greg Mannino, our other guest, is a 22-time Paralympic Alpine skiing extraordinaire. And he's been in the P&O industry for over 10 years. He's worked with prosthetic manufacturers as a clinical specialist, and he is actually a practitioner himself for over 10 years. And I'd like to...
Hi, everybody.
Hello, Greg. Sorry. Special shout out to Tom Carlson for facilitating this wonderful first event for us. So thank you very much, Tom. We appreciate you.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, on that, I'm going to hand it over to Greg and Cosi. Thank you so much.
All right, so we're okay with that. It's ours. It's our turn.
It's all you.
Okay, awesome. So guys, thank you so much for having me here, and I know Greg is also appreciative for being here to be able to just share education with you all. In the limb loss community, there's not a whole lot of specialists out there. So we're happy to help bring this education to you and hopefully answer some of your questions tonight. So we're going to kind of briefly cover some of the issues that you would normally encounter with your skin. And then we're going to kind of move on to what are the roles of the physical therapist and the prosthetist in your recovery from limb loss. So all of us here agree as clinicians that it all starts with healthy skin.
That's right.
If you don't have healthy skin, then it doesn't matter what kind of a socket, what kind of a fancy knee, what kind of a dynamic response foot you put underneath it. If your skin is not healthy, you don't have a platform to stand on, no pun intended, okay? So because of the fact that you're putting something on your skin for the majority of your day, it's going to be undergoing a lot more stress than the skin on the rest of your body. So keeping it healthy needs to be a priority. And then to add something more to that, 80% of people who experience limb loss have that happen because of problems from diabetes or vascular complications. So when you lose your limb, diabetes is still there, vascular issues are still there. So you need to not only care for yourself from a healthcare standpoint, really protect that skin so that those issues don't become a problem. So some of the things that you're going to encounter as you're using your prosthesis, whether you're a beginner user or experienced user, is you're going to experience issues with pressure. There could possibly be pain in your socket, soreness, inflammation, irritation, and friction, shearing. So basically when the skin is being rubbed up against either by the liner or the sock or the socket itself, okay? And all of this can contribute to damage to the skin, and it makes it more vulnerable. So if your skin has open area because you've developed a blister, or there's shearing going on, or it's dry and chapped, you're basically opening up a channel for bacteria and viruses to get in there. So do you want to add anything to that, Greg?
Oh, absolutely. So I would agree. Again, where if you're a prosthetic user and you suffer from diabetes, that pressure sores can really get out of control just from the hydrostatic pressure from the socket. Again, like Cosi said, if our fit is perfect, our pressures are greater, we're walking on anatomy that we're not used to walking on, and we've got to build up some tolerance there. But if in fact you do have a little abrasion or heat rash, it gives a real quick entry for bacteria, fungus, to irritate the skin and break it down more. And I'm a prosthetic user as well, and that little hot spot can turn into something that could keep you out of your prostheses daily. So again, talking about proper hygiene is so important. And back in the day, we talked about, the microprocessor knees, dynamic response feet. We're all about socket design, and nobody really addressed the issues of skin breakdown or what can happen in the socket. And I've actually been doing some studies on and reading studies on bacteria in sockets and all these things that can compound so quickly and interrupt your daily activities or your life from 1 to weeks, depending on the situation. So it's so critical today, and to have a product that addresses these issues is just so. I got so excited when I first found this, talking to Chris, that I'm like, wow, here's something that we, like Cosi mentioned, that we don't. Doesn't matter what's hanging on that socket. If you've got the latest microprocessor, it's not going to help you if you're having irritation with your skin. And we all know sweating is a big issue this time of year. 99 degrees in Florida, 90 degrees here in Colorado. That's something that really can just translate into skin breakdown very, very quick. So this product line actually addresses perspiration, bacteria, fungus, odor. I mean, there's so many pluses to just helping yourself move along quicker and have a better day every day if you just talk about skin hygiene and skincare. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the things that we talk about with, and you hit the nail on the head, probably the number one problem I hear from my patients is sweat. We live in Florida, so it's basically 2 seasons, summer and hot as Hades summer. That's basically 2 seasons here.
Yeah.
And my patients are literally pouring sweat out of their sockets and their liners. So, we encounter problems like heat rash, bacterial infection, fungal infections, even yeast infections. And I definitely notice the patients who have the best hygiene on their liner, their daily cleaning of their liner, daily rinsing out of the liner, making sure there's no soapy residue, and who are taking care of their skin, they are the ones who have the least or none of these issues. Some of them they can actually prevent from having any kind of these rashes crop up. But definitely finding out what is going on with your skin. Is it too dry? Is it too oily? Is it too sweaty? And figuring out how you can balance the skin. Chris mentioned I've been a PT now for over 17 years. And up until recently, I was basically looking through the over-the-counter solutions, going to the drugstore and saying, okay, antiperspirant, let's try an antiperspirant, let's try bag balm. And I'm sure, a lot of these things, but none of these products were specifically designed for the amputee or diabetic skin. So some of them would work every once in a while, but there was nothing that was consistent. So that was really excited to find out that there was finally a product line that was designed for this population, for this community. Greg, you want to talk a little bit about how the products work a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. So there's a bunch of bullet points we could talk about, and I could jump into the first parts of them, and I'm reading a little bit of script, but you know, the one thing that can really affect us, sweat, that's a big one, like Cosi said. If your day's interrupted by having to redon your prostheses because of sweat, that's just an inconvenience we don't need to have going on. So the liquid to powder is one of the products that alleviates the perspiration. And again, it's antibacterial. All the products are antibacterial, except the nightly cream. But I can't say enough for people with sensitive skin who are spraying antiperspirants that are not really designed in that area, and then you encapsulate it in a socket. So, and some people it works for, other people it don't. But if you've got, you know, skin that is susceptible to pressure, or if you're a heavy sweater, or because I'm one of those heavy sweaters too on hot days, especially in Florida, when I go into humid climates, I mean, you suffer and it interrupts your days. So so that's a big deal. And if it's your day's interrupted, just to read on your prosthesis 3 or 4 different times, it's just an inconvenience we really don't need to have. Again, we all as prosthetists strive to create great socket fits. There's fantastic liners out there. And there's even liners today that are reducing and letting perspiration, you know, evacuate from the socket. But again, it's the basis for all this stuff. If you take care of your skin, you're going to be ahead of the game. And it's a simple thing to do to help your PT, to help your prosthetists, because everybody's in there working as a team, as a cohesive team to try to help you do better. So this one little step that you can do will help yourself. Very, very simple thing to do. And if you get into it daily, you won't believe the difference. And from my experience with it, that's how I got involved. I started like, wow, I was talking to Skip and Chris about this product at the National Prosthetic Conference, tried it, and it was just like a game changer for me. And so I'm over the moon. So, but that being said, again, you know, your socket creates some environments that aren't really the best for your skin and with pressure. And granted, we got to have the correct hydrostatic pressure to keep your prostheses on. There's a fine line between too much and not enough. We all know what happens when there's not enough pressure. So that translates into skin friction and skin breakdown very easily. And it doesn't take a lot. And I mean, there's so many great prosthetists in this world today that understand socket fit, understand what needs to be done. And I mean, I know so many guys that are, you know, work hard to see that it's correct, but that one little abrasion can, you know, erupt into something terrible. So again, if you take care of your skin, hygiene, keep it clean, that's the biggest thing. You'll have better success. So yeah, I know I'm going off a little on tangent there, but yeah, I agree.
It's a constant educational process. And I remember as a teenager, you know, when you're going through teenager stage and you've got all the breakouts on your face. And I remember the dermatologist telling me you have to treat yourself from the inside and from the outside. Mm-hmm. And, you know, what he meant by that was on the inside, I needed to make sure I kept my diet healthy, hydration, everything like that. So what that translates to, especially for my diabetic patients, is managing that diabetes, making sure your glucose is under control, because if your glucose is under control, your vasculature, your arteries and your veins are going to be that much healthier, which means you're going to have better circulation for your skin. So it really does go from the inside out, and then attacking it from the outside, having something like this product line to keep your skin healthy. And guys, I even recommend this to my patients, my young 20-year-old, I call them my young 20-year-old rubbery patients, the ones who have this great, beautiful skin, because they're going to be wearing this for the rest of their lives. So they need to start taking care of their skin to make sure it lasts them for the next 6, 7, hopefully 8 decades of life. So yeah, that's
a great point, Cosi.
One of my personal boxes.
You know, and here's the fact. A lot of, you know, and I even look at my own shoes here. I didn't think about all those things when I was a young patient. I just wanted to do as much as I could possibly do. And I never really dawned on me that was just an inconvenience that we fought through. And we're talking, I started back in the day of wooden sockets, so it's been a long time, you know, and it's progressed through all the CAD CAM and the shield containment to where it is today. But I think it's a great point that you're, you know, when you're young, start young, get in this this regiment of taking care of your skin. And again, it falls even more importantly on the older patient or the more seasoned patient that the more you focus on that regimen of taking care of your skin and keeping your skin integrity, the better you're going to do and the easier the day is, you know, and it makes it easier for the PT, makes it easier for the prosthetist, and you as the end user. I've always kind of tried to talk with a lot of the people I work with is, you know, you're the driver here. You got to remember, I mean, the root of your issues is going to be you not taking care of yourself or you not going out and challenging yourself and setting goals. So remember, everyone who's on board, just take control at the skin level, and the prosthetist and the PT and the componentry that everybody's using worldwide now is pretty darn good. So make it easy on yourself. That's kind of.
Yep. And I'm going to say one last thing, and I'm going to let Chris, because I know Chris has got something for us too. You know, I've had so many times where a patient has come into my clinic so eager, they have their prosthesis, nice shiny new prosthesis, and they are so ready to get going with gait training and walking. And I look at their skin and they've broken out in this horrendous rash, or they have a blister, or they have dry, chapped skin where I have to sit there and scrub their skin and spend most of my treatment taking care of skin. And it's game over. And it's so disheartening to have to tell my patient, I'm sorry, we cannot take a single step until your skin is cleared up, because we're going to cause really big problems. Right. And they tell me, well, how do I do it? And I go, you have to not wear your leg until this clears up. So it's like you're in a penalty box, and that's how you have to solve it. So it breaks my heart when I knew that they could have prevented it just by helping with their hygiene and their skincare, which we then continue to address after that.
Right, and that we have that avenue now, and that's what's so great, because daily hygiene, daily moisturizer, this will heal yourself up. If you get these little hot spots or heat rash or a little, you know, fungal infection, you can overtake that infection in one night with this product line.
Mm-hmm. Your turn, Chris, your turn. I've been talking a lot.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, folks, we're going to do our giveaway, our first one, and Paul's going to put something on the screen for you. There'll be a question that we're going to ask, and if you would please put the answer to the question in the chat box. So please tap the chat box and input the answer to hygiene is important because 1, it prevents bacteria and fungus, 2, reduces risk of irritation, 3, improve socket comfort, or 4, all of the above. So we're going to give you a moment to answer that, please. And the winner will receive a free VitalFit starter kit.
Nice. I was like, can I play? Can I get a starter kit?
Right.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to wait for those to come in just to give people enough time. And so thank you for that. I'm going to share the winner momentarily. But until then, if everybody's ready, if there's not any other questions right now for Cosi and Greg, we can get into the presentation of the role of the PT and the prosthetist, please.
Okay. So I'll go. You want me to go? Or you want to go first?
Oh, you can go.
Oh,
I got the chat box. I was trying to read in the chat box. Go ahead.
Got it. So guys, on the show that I do every Wednesday night, one of the most common questions I get is, what exactly does a physical therapist do? And when I opened up my practice 2 years ago, because I had been working in a big hospital down in Miami where we had a full-on amputee clinic, I just took it for granted that people knew the benefits of physical therapy. That doctors would know to refer us, that prosthetists would know to refer us, that patients would know this is what part of your recovery should include. And you know, unfortunately, because there's not too many of us PT specialists out there, many people are not aware of what we do as a profession and specifically for the amputee and limb loss community. So a physical therapist, it's kind of a lengthy definition, so I'm gonna try to shrink it down so I don't lose you. We diagnose and we assess problems with gross motor function. So gross motor function includes things like transferring from one place to another, gait training, walking. the ability to do activities of daily living. So getting dressed and doing everything in your job related to your job. And the way we diagnose this is we assess your musculoskeletal neurosystem. So we test your nerves, we test your muscles, we test your bones, we test alignment, strength, balance, coordination. And we figure out what the deficits are that are preventing you from being able to do everything in your life with mobility. Okay. So when it comes to working with amputees and limb loss, the bread and butter, the primary focus is gait training, learning to use the prosthesis. So my most common phrase is, basically a prosthetist helps build the car and the physical therapist teaches you how to drive the car. And there is some overlap, and we're going to kind of get into that a little bit there. But that's the primary focus. So when my patients come into my clinic and they say, well, what were you going to do? And my answer to them is, what do you want to be able to do in your life? And what do we need to be able to do for you physically to get you to that point? So whether it's running a marathon or going back to work or running after 4 kids or grandkids, what is it that you need to be able to do, and how can we get you to that point? Your turn, Greg. And then we have prosthetists.
See, having a PT like Cosi on board is amazing because as a prosthetist, my role would be evaluating the patient when they come in, communicating with the surgeon. If we are lucky enough to meet with the surgeon prior to amputation with a directive and a plan, which we work as a comprehensive team with the PT to say, hey, we all get involved, and the final goal, what that patient wants to do, we work together as a team. So that's the biggest, most important thing with the PTs I've worked with, and I get to work with Cosi, and I'm just so excited about it because she understands the mechanics of prosthetics, how they work, how to teach a patient how to vary cadence, maneuver, curbs, stairs, ramps, which is so important. And as a practitioner, for me, my job is to evaluate the patient, look at their residual limb, communicate with them what we're going to use, what our plan of attack is. And I love having the PT involved there as a team because we all have, it's more sets of eyes and ears to listen to what the patient really wants to do. I talk a lot about goal orientation with patients because for me, it's like prosthetics is not really that hard as how and don't get me wrong, everybody is everybody's a challenge, everybody's anatomy is different, but it's not rocket science what we're doing here. Once we have a correct fitting socket with the correct hydrostatic pressure, stable alignment, that part's all pretty easy to do. It's then teaching the patient to trust in it, having the correct programs if we're in the knees, if we're using microprocessor, or if we're in mechanical knees, making sure our alignments are stable. I always viewed it, it's not that difficult, but I talk with my patients a lot saying, hey, what's our goals? And fortunately for me, over the last almost 5 years, I'm working with more guys that are already established, not so many new patients, and we're doing high-end snow sports prosthetics. So I'm kind of been, over the last 5 years, working with the cream of the crop, which is a lot easier because they're already beyond the learning how to walk and stuff. And we're trying to excel in skiing, or that may be, snowboarding or water, whatever that sport may be. So, but, my job is to see that we're set up correctly, we're comfortable, we've got the optimum liners or suction sockets. I'm a suction socket guy. I love that. I think there's some fantastic liners out there. And if I've got a seasoned patient that can tolerate that, that's the way we like to go. It's less parts to the puzzle that, can go wrong kind of theory. But I think you have to have a cohesive team and understand what the practitioner does and understand what the PT does, and then set your goals and let's all work together. So that's the most important thing, I think. So, yeah, in a long answer, but it doesn't matter what's kind of hanging under the socket. Again, it all reverts back to if you've got a major skin care issues, you could have the latest X3 or X4 knee and this and that, and it's going to kind of hold you back a little bit for getting optimum performance out of that design. So
absolutely. And the team approach is something, so I'm curious, I'm going to do my own little poll here if y'all don't mind. In the chat box, guys, how many of you have had the opportunity to work with a prosthetist and a physical therapist? How many of you have had both on your team for recovery? I'm very curious to hear what that will be.
Yeah,
and Greg is absolutely right. One of the reasons I broke out to do my own practice is because I realized I needed to be able to have access to the prosthetist. So my clinic model is a little bit different, where I can go to the prosthetist office sometimes and work directly with the prosthetist and the patient in the same room. And whenever I have those kind of patients, those are the patients who have the best outcomes. Not necessarily because they're a below the knee compared to a bilateral above the knee. It's what is their team approach to help the patient get to their goals. And there's a lot of overlap between prosthetists and physical therapists. Like, we're going to look at the gait cycle and we're going to see it two different ways, which is good because it means that both of us are picking up different issues with different activities. And so, for example, Greg might see something when the patient's going up and down the bars in his clinic, but when the person comes to see me, I might have them doing different activities that can trigger other problems that need to be corrected there. And then also, when it comes to choosing componentry, there's different things that as a physical therapist I will see and that the prosthetist will see, and we can give that input. Ultimately, I usually leave the decision up to the prosthetist and the patient, but I certainly like to give input in saying, this patient has a very high level balance. They're very active. We need to get them a foot that can keep up with their activity level. Or no, this person is still struggling with their balance. They need to be more connected with the ground. Maybe a hydraulic ankle is more appropriate. And when you have that much input, you're going to get the better outcome. So let me just see.
I agree. Fantastic points. And I'm reading the chat box that Clarence said he's had the pleasure to work with both, which is fantastic.
Great.
Not everybody has that opportunity in this country, which is it is what it is. I hate to use that term, but it's, sometimes that's what it is. I see Tom's only worked with a prosthetist, and a lot of prosthetists, we're the first one to set up, program that knee, or, correct that alignment and teach the first steps. But as a collaborative approach, what I see, and I've worked with so many patients as a clinical specialist in different Walter Reed Army Medical Center around the country, et cetera, VA centers. And I see alignments that other guys do that I see something wrong, and I've changed a lot of alignments. So, it's in fact such a benefit to have a PT on board going, hey, did you set that up on Monday? Because, he looks a little bit, adducted or something. But no, that's the beauty of having two and having the ability to working with both of them and having a team. So I'm all for it. I love there's a few offices out there that have PTs on their staff and they work in the same office, like Cosi's saying. But it just, I think that it's so valuable because I've seen PTs out there, and I've seen Corbel prosthetists, and I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but that don't understand lower limb amputation. And they go, okay, go to physical therapy, and they got you in the corner doing some curls over there, but that's not really utilizing the prostheses. So that's not the perfect outcome, but we have to start somewhere, and I understand that. So as a patient and a user, you want to be able to ask those questions. Hey, do I have a PT I get to work with that prosthetist or vice versa? So that's so important. And it comes back to the patient. Again, like I said earlier, you're driving this car. You're the one driving your body here. So you've got to ask the right questions. You've got to be very truthful on what your goals and outcomes are. I think Cosi made a great point about, hey, we've got patients that maybe don't have the voluntary control to control or be stable, and we're looking to fit the appropriate component on there, or we've got the high-end athlete that maybe thinks they need a microprocessor knee, but they really need a hydraulic because they're going to go run marathons. We don't need to use that knee, but optimally, if we can have both, that's the best thing in the world. So,
right, absolutely. And that kind of brings us to our next topic is how do you go about finding your prosthetist and your physical therapist? Because this is something I really advocate for. As humans, we live longer, our needs also increase. So we take more medications, we have more doctors to help us manage those medications, and our bodies kind of break down over time. So the prosthetist obviously has to be a part of the rest of your life because you need a leg, right, to make your leg. But the physical therapist is also part of that team process and the natural aging process because our bodies are going to kind of run into problems over the course of time. So definitely how to go about finding. So physical therapists, I call ourselves kind of the unicorns. It's kind of tough to find us. Those of us who are amputee specialists. But I can tell you that if you do your search and you find one, we're worth the wait. And it's never too late. That's another thing. When I opened up my practice, it really surprised me that the majority of my patients who come to see me, they are years out of their amputation. And even though they're kind of making it from point A to point B in their lives, they're not at that activity level that they want to be. And I tell them it's never too late. You've got bad habits, we can teach you new habits. We can teach you the gait mechanics. We can teach you how to use that Genium X3 and how to really get into fifth gear and wring it out. So it's never too late. So even if you are, you know, Tom, you said you didn't have a chance to work with a prosthetist, look for that physical therapist. So what I tell people is, number one, look outside your zip code. If there's not one immediately in your area, and if there is, you probably have heard about them, especially if you're part of a support group, because people will chat with one another about it. Start looking outside of your zip code. And I've had people come in from out of state, because when you find someone who can teach you how to use this leg properly, it's going to change the quality of your life. The same way when you find that prosthetist who can finally get that socket to be comfortable, you're going to hang on to them for dear life. You're going to hang on to them for dear life. With the physical therapist, it's the same way. So I tell people, look outside your zip code. Number two, interview your PT. Interview your PT. And I've done this myself to my own colleagues. Whenever I had to look for a physical therapist for a family member, when I had to look for a physical therapist for any injuries that I may have had, I pick up the phone and I call them. If they are not able to give me 5 minutes of their time to answer a couple of simple questions, right there off the bat tells me they're not going to give me the quality of care that I'm looking for. And they're not going to be available to me when I turn my knee and all of a sudden it swells up and I need someone to take a look at it and squeeze me in. They're not going to be as available. So looking to see, is your physical therapist approachable? Are they going to be returning your call? Simple things like that really tell you a lot about the physical therapist. If you're not able to find a PT who specializes in amputees, it's not the end of the world. As physical therapists, all of us are trained on gait mechanics and how to do gait training. So oftentimes what's happened is somebody will find a physical therapist who is motivated to help them, and what they need to do is connect with the prosthetist. Mm-hmm. So a lot of what I learned, I was very fortunate that I received a lot of intense training from another physical therapist who's an amputee specialist, but much of what I've learned has been from talking with my local prosthetists and just calling them up and saying, hey, this is the first time I work with a Rio knee. Can you tell me the specs? Can you tell me what I can expect with my patient? And what am I looking for here? So if you have a physical therapist who's motivated and wants to help you, and they're talking with your prosthetist, you're going to have better outcomes there as well. And that's another key factor. Your prosthetist and your physical therapist have to be willing to play nice together. And again,
that's right.
99 times out of 10, when I call a prosthetist and I introduce myself and I say, hey, they're happy to hear from me because it's the team approach. But sometimes you'll run into the PT who doesn't want to talk to the prosthetist, or the prosthetist who doesn't want to talk to the PT. You don't need those people on your team. You need people who are willing to work together and to put you as the priority.
That's right. Good point. You, the patient, is the priority. And I agree on a little bit of ad-libbing on that. Your prosthetist has to be available because things come loose, things twist. If you can't call your prosthetist on the cell phone and they pick up, then that's a problem, because as simple as I've seen stuff that shouldn't twist. Somebody forgot the Loctite. And if that's not available and he's not available, or he, she, whoever that is not available, you just need to be available. And that's one thing I've always wanted to say, hey, listen, I don't care what time it is, we're going to make sure everything is correct. And it comes back down to being set up correctly in the beginning and not monkeying around with stuff. I've had a lot of patients who want to change their alignment. So those guys, once we get them set up, we use red Loctite so they can't break the bolts loose, because I've had a lot of those people change things and loosen things and then stuff falls apart. But again, I can't agree enough of what Cosi's saying. It's just incredibly important to have a good cohesive team with PT and process working together and listening to the goals that you want to do and get back to your normal everyday life. and do the things that are important to you. And again, like Cosi said, playing with your grandkids, become a Paralympic skier, or a marathon runner. Just when you have a team that listens to you and optimizes your outcome, that's why Cosi's involved. I know it. That's why I'm involved, because we want to see people do well.
Yep. And then I'm going to add just a small addendum to that, because some people say, should I look for a big clinic? Should I look for a small clinic? I'm a little biased because it's me, myself, and I in my clinic. I like the smaller mom and pop clinics because obviously as a business owner, I am much more personally vested in my business and making sure that my patients are happy with the outcomes. That being said, I have worked for some of the bigger, larger corporations. It's about who the prosthetist or physical therapist is. And some of the benefits of the larger corporations is because they have more staff available. They can have a rotating person who's always on call. So if your insurance, for example, if your insurance company does not cover some of the smaller clinics and you have to choose from the larger corporations, same process. Call up, interview the prosthetist, interview the physical therapist, find out who on the team people seem to gravitate towards, and start building that relationship there as well.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. That's just exactly what you want to do as a patient. And if you end up in that situation, you're interviewing the prosthetist, ask them what they've done, ask them what kind of training they've had, ask them what they're comfortable with. Some of the worst case scenario can be an amputee prosthetist that says, this is the best thing you can have. And that I don't like, because what may be great for me as a older high-end user is not great for everybody. And I have seen and encountered guys like that. And I'm not real keen on that. I think they're not listening to what the patient's needs are. Guys love to see a product and they have great outcomes. And I'm not just saying guys, I've seen people, maybe that's a better word, get rat-holed into outcomes that, like, I know this fit works, I know this knee works. And that's what you get. And I think if you encounter a prosthetist like that, then they're not really listening to what your needs are. So, we all do very well on a microprocessor knee because they're predictable. You don't have to think every step. They change the cadence automatically when you speed up or slow down. But is it the most optimum thing if you live on the beach every day? Maybe not, just because of the issues with salt water and impervious to some elements. So I don't know, again, what Cosi says, find somebody who listens, find somebody you can, put your heart out there and say, this is what I want to do and how can you help me achieve that? And that's what's really important.
And don't ever be afraid, guys, to get a second opinion.
Yep.
I can't tell you, for me, as a PT, I'm good at what I do. I'm experienced. I'm not perfect. So I understand if a patient comes to me and they're just like, yeah, we're not sure if you're going to be the right fit for us. I usually tell them, go get a second opinion. I encourage you, go check out the other PT clinic down the road that doesn't have an amputee specialist and see what they have to say for you. And, 9 times out of 10, they usually come back to the clinic.
Right.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is the clinicians that I've worked with that are the best at what they do and they're confident in their abilities to help their patients, they're not threatened by their patients getting a second opinion because they know that what they're doing is best. So whenever I have a patient who tells me, well, I'm not really happy with my prosthesis, but I'm afraid of leaving my prosthetist because I know he or she's going to be upset with me. Or I don't want to go to another prosthetist in that same clinic because they might get a little upset with me. And that to me is a problem, guys. So, if you are having any issues with your socket or your prosthesis, or you feel like your training with your physical therapist is not going anywhere, that you're not making progress, that they're putting you on a hot pack and throwing you on a stationary bicycle and they call that physical therapy, you have the right to a second opinion. You have the right to a second opinion and you shouldn't be afraid to go do that. So just thought I'd put that one out there.
No, that's perfect. That's a perfect comment. Again, you're the driver in your rehabilitation. We're team members to see you get to that point of doing the things you love to do. And again, you need to ask the questions. You need to get the second opinions. You need to be confident in the staff that's working with you that they're going to do the best they can do to allow you to do what you want to do. So I agree with Cosi 100%. And the old saying, build it and they will come.
Yeah.
That happens.
It does. It does. So, you still there, Chris?
Hi. Sorry.
Oh, there she is. Get on mute.
Hello. Hello. Well, thank you. I appreciate your input, you guys, and sharing. So I'm going to open it up for any individual that might have a question for Cosi and Greg. So we'll give that a little pause here.
It's an open season on the PT and prosthetist.
Yeah, come on, bring it. I got a cute question popped up. Oh, okay, that's Clarence. Nothing there. Oh yeah, Clarence had a thing. He's had the pleasure of working with both. I like that.
So
Good
Clarence,
deal.
can you kind of put in there for us, were you able to achieve your goals in working with the prosthetist and the physical therapist? Were you able to have everything that you wanted to be able to do with your mobility? How did that work out for you? And then I'm throwing the question out at Tom. So Tom, you've worked with a prosthetist, but you have not been able to work with a physical therapist. Is there anything in your mobility that you would like to be able to do?
I don't see a pop up yet. I do see a pop up looking at your website. What is the difference between day and night moisturizer? That's a good one.
Yep.
I can take that one. So your day moisturizer is antibacterial as well. So there's something you would use after you cleanse. It's always hydration of the skin is what's going to keep it healthy and allow you to optimize your outcomes. So I use the cleanser, I use the day moisturizer, I use the liquid to powder to take the friction away and the sweat. And then the night moisturizer is the pure antioxidant-based moisturizer that you put on at night and put it on literally all over, and it will heal your skin and rejuvenate your skin. So the next day when you wake up, you're ready to go. And my experience with this, and again, I hate being that patient prosthetist experience thing, but I think it is valuable. I hike a lot, I guide a lot. I had some skin breakdown because I just went too far trying to keep up with able-bodied guys, because that's really hard to do some places, especially these guys out in the mountains. But I broke my skin down where I used the night moisturizer, and I literally healed myself from a pretty bad pressure sore from dehydration, too much weight on my back, not stopping and checking that burning sensation. I probably should have, but the night moisturizer is so quick at healing your skin and optimizing that skin integrity. So the difference between the two, I would say, use your day moisturizer. It's antibacterial. If you've got any little bugs or bacteria in the socket, it's going to kill it, and moisturize your skin. So nighttime, just use that every night when you go to bed.
Absolutely. We've got Clarence here who said, totally agree, was able to find both the PT and the prosthetist that was more catering to your needs as a right below the knee and doing much better. And then Tom, let's see, Tom wrote something.
Oh yeah, I learned Cosi.
So Tom, I'm trying to find it. There we go. No, I didn't find it. Never mind.
Oh, I think I saw it. From Tom here to you, Cosi. It says, I learned, Cosi, how to do it on my own, like to hockey skate again, and how, like I did before I was an amputee.
And that's something I do want to comment on, because I won't lie, guys, it makes me cringe just a little bit when I hear someone say, oh, I learned how to walk completely on my own. Here's my response to that. And this is just something that I want you guys just to put in the back of your minds and think about it. There are people, especially my below the knee amputees, that they put their leg on, and yes, they're able to walk around in their communities. They're able to do a lot of things. Ultimately, some of those same amputees come to my clinic because they tell me, like Tom, I'd like to be able to run again. I'd like to be able to skate. I'd like to be able to go hiking. But for whatever reason, even though I can walk without a cane or a walker and I'm walking all over the community, I just can't do these skills. Here's what I find that happens a lot. Your body finds a way to compensate. So your body will find, and where there's a will, there's a way kind of scenario. So your body will find a way to utilize certain muscles to the bare minimum to get you from point A to point B, to get you around in the community. And when I do some more muscle testing, I'll find that they're not activating the full potential of a particular muscle, usually the muscles in the hips and in the bottom, the gluteal muscles, okay? And many people don't realize that they have this existing weakness there and they're not aware of it. So what I tell people, and people who say, no, I'm good, I'm walking, I'm fine, I'm like, awesome. Still find yourself that physical therapist, because at some point in your life cycle, you're going to need that physical therapist, and you'll want to have them on hand ready to go if and when something happens. And two, for example, in my clinic, I offer free consults. So I'll see a patient in for 15 to 20 minutes. I'll screen them. I'll do a quick test on them. And if they're good to go, they're good to go. So I would encourage you just to treat yourself to a physical therapist, just laying eyes on you and seeing what they have to say. They might find something there that's preventing you from being able to do that next high level skill. So just food for thought.
No, I agree. And identify if you are just eating around and you've had no formal training from a PT, just evaluating, having a Cosi evaluate how your socket ply is, how that's fitting. I mean, if your prosthetist isn't available or you've ran out of socks, and to have a Cosi or a PT evaluate and go, hey, maybe we need to look at the socket again. You've grown out of it, or it's become too big, or, you know, so those are very valuable thoughts with Cosi that go on what you're saying there. And people can have bad habits, and they are inherently easy to create. And vaulting, for one, has been a big one for that, to try to break people from vaulting, that they, you know, and that possibly can be exaggerated because the prosthesis is 3/8 of an inch too long. There's little things that where you got to make sure that prosthetist has things correct, but having the PD being limb loss certified, or identifying not just a regular PT, and don't get me wrong, I think they're all great because they're all there to help, but having somebody like, you know, Cosi, who understands it, who can actually look at it and go, oh, you know, you look a little tall, or you look a little short, and those little nuances can really create bad habits. So I agree with you on that. I want to throw it back to you because I'm reading how can Tom go ahead and learn to hockey skate again? What would you be your answer for that?
Let's see. Well, my limited only one time on the ice as a kid, the wiggly wobbliness. It all starts, Tom, with a solid core. And you've heard, I know you've heard me say this a lot on my show. It's all about the butt. So basically all the muscles located in your bottom and in your hips, your gluteus maximus, medius, minimus, all the muscles that are located underneath your gluteus maximus, those are your stabilizers. Okay, those are very large muscle groups, and those are the ones providing your hips the stability and then also giving you that power when you're walking, because of the fact that you don't have some of those lower leg muscles to give you that power. So those gluteal muscles have to be super strong. Number two, your core. People often talk about their core, but they don't understand the core is not just the little six pack in the front. It's deep inside, a muscle called the transverse abdominis. So deep, deep inside your abdomen, that muscle, and training that muscle can be a little bit tricky. The muscles along your back that run along your spinal cord and your spinal column, okay? Your pelvic floor, it's made of all of muscles, and there's a way to train the pelvic floor to help support everything. So all of these muscle groups need to be trained to give you a really good, solid support. And then you'll find that when it comes to balance and coordination, that will be much easier to do. So a lot of times with the skating, I would imagine, and again, this is just from, I do more rollerblading than ice skating, but there's a tendency to favor one leg over the other. And that's what something that you would want to work on with the skating, is to be able to, as evenly as possible, distribute your weight between both legs and being as comfortable as possible leaning on just the prosthesis. So it would involve doing a lot of activities where you're putting your weight just on your prosthesis. And again, activating those hip muscles, activating those gluteus muscles to keep you nice and strong. So a lot of times, and this goes back to what I said a few minutes earlier, a lot of times my patients have strengthened these muscles, but they're not utilizing the muscles to the full potential. And they're not recruiting all those muscle fibers that they need to really power through some of these high level activities.
Right, I agree. And, you know, hockey skating, rollerblading, any of these type of skating sports, or even skiing sports, you've got to be in pretty good physical shape before you do it. So weight room, work on legs, work on core. That's a big thing that we do. I think that not only, like Cosi's saying, talking about equal weight on prostheses or sound side for skating sports or skiing sports, was we really work on our guys on the hill to really stand on the prostheses, really transfer weight. And that's just not in sports. That's in everyday mobility, and with your prostheses, trying to get equal limb loading. And there's been big studies. If you're always on your sound side, the degenerative knee issues and hip issues that can be created. So trying to be cognizant of really equal weight. And then when it comes to, Tom, when it comes to hockey skating, get the skating chair or get the stool and skate around with that first. That's what I'd say, because you fall down less with that, and the ice is hard, kind of one of those things. That's how I learned to skate. I did it with the chair, and then I went to a hockey stick because it gives you another little tap on the ground for balance. So start with the chair, graduate to the stick, and then at some point you can get rid of the stick if you choose. But I know a lot of amputees out there that do very, very well in skating, and I'm not the biggest skater. I'm more of a skier, but I can do it. It's just, you know, falling on the ice is so hard. Just wear your pads too. But
I think that's why I like surfing better. It's a bit of a softer landing.
yeah, that's a good point. Good point.
No, but
I see another prop. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Chris.
Oh, no. I was just going to say Bill Zabelny, you know, 2-time Hockey Hall of Famer, below the knee amputee. He was actually on my show a couple weeks back.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, he gets up there and he tears it apart on the ice.
Yeah, you never know he's an amputee. That's what I need.
Yeah. All right, so I'm checking to see.
I got a pop up there. I got rid of it.
Okay.
I see one that popped up. How do you clean your liner? I think that's using the cleanser that's in the kit. That's a big one for you liner wearers. I'm a suction socket wearer or skin fit. I think you really want to keep it clean. Wash it with, the cleaner in water, warm water. Washcloth, wash your skin. That's a big one. Keep it clean. Even like suction socket wear that I'm kind of old school, Cosi. I can't wait someday you can look at my socket and you're going to be like, wow, that's old school. But I wear the old cat cam socket, which back to the whole skin integrity thing, it's even more demanding on your skin when you're wearing suction versus a liner. There's not that little bit of 9 millimeters of pad or 14. And this is really, again, comes, all the way circles back around to keeping your skin clean, hydrated, and it will keep your skin integrity. And there's a lot of people out there wearing suction sockets, and I love them for the guys who can tolerate them. They do better. It's a little bit more in tune with what's going on inside the socket. You're not adding stuff. So, but again, it can create more skin issues. So I can't say enough with keeping it clean, keeping it hydrated. So.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. So while we make sure there aren't any more questions, I'd like to announce that Clarence won the VitalFit starter kit. So congratulations.
Clarence.
Right.
Good job.
Clarence, if you let Tom know where we should send that, we'll get on that tomorrow. And we'll wait a little bit longer for a question. And meanwhile, I'm going to have Paul go ahead and just put up our website along with my email address. If anyone would like to contact me with any questions, I can reach out to Greg and Cosi as well.
Oh, I see a pop-up question here. Clarence put up. Can I read that one, Chris?
Yes, please.
While that's up. Okay, yeah, he's got I just popped up another one. It says, I totally agree. I was able to find both physical therapists and was intimate. I'm sorry. I got to clean my glasses. I got a pop up at the right same time I popped it up, and I got a pop up in front of it. So I got to see if I can get it popped up again. Hang on, I'm sorry. Physical comparison, intimate, and the prosthetists that was more catering to my needs as a right below knee amputee, and I'm doing much better. Okay, I'm sorry. I got a pop up right between them. But yeah, good, Clarence. I mean, you know what the value of having a PT and a prosthetist working together, and your outcome sounds like it's better. So I would encourage everyone to find that Cosi out there, or go to Florida. I don't know what else to say, but it's refreshing to see what she's doing, and I'm just honored to work with her, because I got to tell you, having somebody understand, and I always used to joke with prosthetists in the field, like, oh, was it a Monday or a Friday when you set that up? And having a PT to be able to go, was it Monday or Friday? And it's just like an inside joke. But I know, Cosi, you're laughing because it's fact, right?
Yeah.
So it's good to have somebody else get second eyes on, second ears on, and actually listen to your needs as a patient and a user, and identify, hey, if something doesn't feel right, they'd probably use it right. So again, really focus on your hygiene, your moisturizing, your socket, all the basis and root outcome and integrity of skin, all is there in the socket. That's where it starts. And then you got great people like Cosi out there who you can rely on for Q&A to help you. If you've got any questions ever for me too, boy, I'm open to helping you any way I can. So.
Thank you. No, I'm chuckling because I did get a phone call once from a prosthetist, and he opened up with saying, "Don't judge, just don't judge." He goes, "I know you're going to be horrified when you see the alignment, but just that's our starting point. Let me know what you see and what we need to change."
Great. You should have said Monday, or was it not Friday? No, that's a good joke.
No, and honestly, when I was a young wet behind the ears therapist, I used to be like, well, why did the prosthetist, and obviously with experience now, I understand, guys, things change. Things change when you walk out the door of the prosthetist clinic and you start using that leg in your home, and your limb starts shrinking and you start sinking more into the socket, and things change. That's why you need many eyes on you.
That's right. And that's a huge point. More eyes, more ears.
Yeah.
And we're hopefully doing our job in the beginning, that we can educate you enough that you can say, hey, it's different. It feels different. Just don't live with that as a patient, is where I guess I'm going with that thought. Just because we have limb loss doesn't mean we should not be able to do what we want to do and do the things that make you happy. So.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Cosi. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate everyone's time, and you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Okay. Well, thank you, Cosi. Thanks, Chris. And I look to do this again. You guys are great.
Yeah.
Awesome.